Welcome to the OIS podcast. Today, Dr. Rob Rothman crosses several time zones to chat with Rochelle Liu, who about 6 years ago made the leap from enterprise CEO to entrepreneur. She's one of a growing number of women who are striking out on their own in China and winning. China is home to 2/3 of the world's top women billionaires. What's more, women comprise about 25% of the country's total entrepreneurs. Let's listen in as Rochelle shares her story and what sets her VC fund apart. Take it away, Rob.
Hello, OIS podcast audience. Nice to speak with everyone again. For those of you who have not watched or listened to a podcast before, with me, my name is Rob Rothman. I am a practicing ophthalmologist. I'm still in clinical practice. I spend about 50% of my time as a glaucoma specialist in New York, involved in direct care of patients. And the other 150% of my time, which is not involved in patient care, I spend running InFocus Capital Partners. I am one of the co-founders and co-managing members, along with my partner, Ron Weiss, who is also an ophthalmologist. And we are an early investor in ophthalmic technology. Our first fund is currently closed. We have 13 assets, all ophthalmically focused, except for one, which has made a slight pivot into ophthalmology and cardiology. But ultimately, we are now involved in the maturation and propagation of our assets while contemplating the launch of our second fund. I am privileged today to have on the podcast someone who I greatly admire and have been involved with for the past several years, actually, probably since the very beginning of my venture capital life. It was one of the first people I met at a meeting right when we started InFocus, Rochelle Liu, who is the founder and CEO of Romanchi Capital. And Rochelle's got an amazing story, and she's going to tell us all about it in a few moments. But on a personal level, Rochelle and I both sit on the board of a joint investment. So we've had some interaction together as board members, but we've also shared diligence, discussed companies, and have been incredibly involved in the ophthalmology investment world. And it's been really fantastic to have the perspective from investors in Asia who share the same passion as we do in trying to identify important and meaningful ophthalmic technology to bring to the world. So Rochelle, thank you for taking the time today. There is a huge time difference for us. Thank you for accommodating me, and it's really a pleasure to have you here.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Thanks for this interview.
So I wanted to get started because there's been this general trend, and I don't know if this is a purposeful maneuver by OIS and Craig, but I've had the privilege of speaking to some unbelievable women who have been involved in ophthalmology, and I would consider you among that group of incredibly talented and well-regarded people who have taken a role in helping to shape ophthalmology across the planet. But I think it's important for people who don't know you to sort of hear a little bit of your background and try and understand sort of where you came from, where you grew up, what your education was, things like that, sort of help sort of channel into how you started Romanchi, because there are people who will listen to this who want to hear how you did it. They'll want to hear how you did it, not being an ophthalmologist, right? Being an investor mostly and having a business background, and also about being a woman. And I think that's important for a lot of listeners here because the challenges are slightly unique for women, I think, in the investment community, although those barriers seem to be breaking down quite a bit. So let's go through all of that. Let's just have a whole, discussion on, sort of where it all started. So tell me about your childhood, where you grew up, and what your educational pathway was.
Okay, so I grew up in China, and I think I also get my education in China. My university study, I think, is engineering, and my postgraduate is economics. Yes, not from my education, you can now see too much relevant with even medical specialty, and no need to say the ophthalmology. I think actually my life has connection with ophthalmology when I was, 40. I left my previous position as a CEO of a comprehensive IT company. It's a big company, with many business units to cover the electronics and the enterprise software, and also the IT integration. I worked in this company, I think, for almost 13 years. I grew up from very basic work until the CEO. I thought I already experienced, different stages as professional manager. And during this career, I had the chance to raise the money, from the funds for several of my business. And also I had the chance to create the joint venture, with my overseas partner. And also I even had the chance to push some of our business to open the branch in the US and in the Israel. During this life, in the past, while I was the 13 years in this company, I really admire the entrepreneur. I hope to be involved more in the startup field. So I decided to leave my, last job and when I was 40. Same year, I think it's in the December of the 2015, I create Remonsi. At the very beginning, I only want to create a small VC that with focused direction. That's maybe because of my industry background and my past career taught me focus could create more value. But we didn't decide ophthalmology at the very beginning. We try to see whether we can find some specific industry that has disciplinary technology as barrier and that can also improve human life quality. This is, I think, is very, very important for us. We take almost 1 year to meet with a lot of the, I think, startups. And also we found that several ophthalmic companies looks very interested to us, when we met many, many companies. It makes us, start to go dive into more in ophthalmology. So we start to interview the physicians and also we read the industry report. It's a very promising industry and the vision issue accompanies, people's lifetime and globally, especially globally enter into the aging society, especially China. So we thought we found we should focus on. And I think that my ophthalmology career, start. I know it looks like a little crazy for you. And I think it's also maybe a little crazy for many people. As I got this question, Rochelle, why you step into the ophthalmology and how you get into the ophthalmology, it looks like nothing relevant with my education, with my previous, industry background. But I think it's my decision, it's my choice. And this is my past career taught me what I should focus on and what I should chase. Job is something like to be professional, but career, I think, is something that you can devote yourself. It's very, very important. And I want to connect my career with improving the human life quality. This is, I think, it's really, really important. And we also feel that we want to immerse ourselves in the startup world and to encounter with many, many different entrepreneurs that will also, enrich our lives. So this is, I think, it's all my thought, when I was, left my previous job and we start to look at, to meet with many, many companies and how we look at ophthalmology is not from as a very professional specialist, a physician. You look at this industry maybe from more, professional, angle, but we look at from this industry is like, wow, it's very interesting, so we do see many, many many multiple disciplinary technology that together in one industry. And we also see, wow, this is some industry that relevant from the kids, teenager until you are, you become the aging people. So that's all in our thought and why we, come into this industry. Yeah.
So that was a very brief encapsulation of your entire life. I'm gonna dive backwards a little bit because I want to focus on one of those two little jumps. So just going back, and we're going to spend some more time on your fund because I think it's
okay.
Obviously, you said all the important things and all the things that I think we all agree with. about your focus, but there's a time between you finish your education and you get your first job, and that first job sort of sets you off a path. I think that if you had taken a first job in something completely different, you might not end up in ophthalmology. So what is that first step? You come out of your educational process, and you did some training in the US too. You did at some point you were at Yale for a postgraduate sort of management course, right?
Yes. I did some training in the year, business management school. That's in my last job. That's as a big company, they try to, we call it like they select the young potential to join this course, in the Yale school. I think it's like a mini MBA because it's not a very long time. It's just a couple of months. But we do is very, very intensive, training in the Yale school, and we try to learn that what's the, the MBA, similar like the MBA, mini MBA course. And I think we learn a lot in the Yale University, and it's very good. And once we came back China, that the Yale University, they also sent the culture and also the professor come to China, for our training. So it's a very good, experience. Yeah.
And then your first job, you said, is with a big company, but what is the focus of that company? I mean, this was a job that you took after your educational process, and they obviously had some focus on life science in some way. Is that correct?
No, actually, what I described my last job is my third job, but it's my last job. I worked for 13 years. Before this company, I think I have another two, companies, but not very long time. My first, actually, after I graduated from my postgraduate school, I think I work for security companies as analyst. That's my first job. Is this take I think for maybe one year and a very short time. And this company I think is my longest. From the working point of view, is 13 years. Yes, this company, I think I know the life science industry is like a part of my business. I mean, this company's business is in the enterprise software. It means like we provide the IT system for the hospital. We're selling many information system, like the HIS, like the PACS, like the LIS system for the hospital. So from that time, I start to know what's the hospital and how the hospital to run, as we need to, go very deeply into each, function, department function, and to connect the, all the business unit of the hospital. And we also create we call it like enterprise bus. It means like all the department can load the data in this, like we call it the data highway inside the hospital. So I think from that time, I start to connect with the hospital system. And also we know that how the physician, how the management of the hospital to work. So I think maybe that's the beginning for me to a little understanding about the healthcare industry. That's also relevant. That's once I left my previous job, we try to start some business in the life science in the healthcare industry. Yeah.
So you have this business background, you've worked as an analyst, you end up in this large IT company that's involved in the life science sector, and then something happens and you say, I'm going to go start a venture capital fund. How does that happen? So how do you decide at that moment that the right place for you to use your skill set is as a venture capital investor? And we'll talk about ophthalmology in a minute, because I think that's part of it, but just specifically how you make the transition from big corporate world into, early, investing in life sciences. So what was that process? What prompted you to do that?
Okay, so I think when I was as a professional manager to work for a big company, even I work as a CEO, it's like a top management, but I think it's still a big system. You have many layers you need to report to. So I feel not very, like if I really want to go dive into some very interesting technology, but I want to go dive into, but it's a big company, you need to be persuade many people. So some interesting company come to us because as an enterprise, as a corporate, we do have the investment arm. We do have the investment arm.
Right.
So, but I feel that it's very difficult because sometimes the chance coming, if you couldn't, grab the chance, it's gone. So I think, okay, I'm enough, because you are in this big system, you need to adapt to many people's thoughts, and you need to convince many people if you really want to do something. And especially for the corporate, it's they are more like the more mature technology. For my company, we have the investment arm, but they may choose the solution is more close to the market. But I'm more like the early stage. It's very you will see many interesting things, but this interesting thing may be very earlier for a big corporate. So all of this, I think I decided, okay, maybe I can create my own venture. Whatever the direction, I just want to see, I want to create a venture, even it's a very small VC, but I can step into the technology world. I can, every day I can look at, the very interesting technology. I can meet with people, I can talk to the entrepreneur. So I think that's the trigger reason that for me, like I really want to, create my own business, not to stay as a top management, but you feel like binding and with a very, frame here. Yeah.
So it's personal. So, right. So that's, and that's very similar to, I think, the story that I have, and I think that a lot of people have in the venture capital when they realize that the things that they enjoy about the investment life cycle, there are certain aspects that are more gratifying at the early stage, and very much as we've shared diligence on multiple projects, it's part of the discovery of new technology and understanding what's going to be most needed and potentially most successful, not only as clinical applied technology, but also investment return. It's very exciting and it's unique. And you cultivated that interest over 15 years of prior experience and realized that was what you wanted to do. How did you decide on ophthalmology? So how does it then translate into, this is because, my opinion, right? Ophthalmology is the greatest investment landscape in the world. And the depth and breadth of what we see is incredible. And yet, as you mentioned, we've heard this multiple times, and I've made this statement multiple times, that investors sometimes say, I'm not investing in something so narrow. They don't really understand the ophthalmology space. But how did you figure that out coming out of an IT company? Because while I think you made an unbelievably prescient decision to do so, it's probably not very clear to a lot of other people listening how that occurred.
Yes, when I started to create, I decided to create a small VC. Is at the beginning I couldn't do a big one, because it's for the VC life. It's the first time for me. So when I decided this, I start to meet with company. I really want to see what's the really early stage startup looks like. And I more, focus in the life science, but in the life science, we are more focused in the medical device world. That will be a little relevant with my, education background. So I'm not come from, from the physician or even from the pharmaceutical background. So we look at many companies, cardiology, aesthetics, many different industry. But we feel, wow, several of the company from ophthalmology looks very interesting and attractive to me. I try to see why this, could be some like a new material, or is like a laser, or is like maybe algorithm from the AI world, or even some like cell therapy. I saw why this small, organ, but can combine with many interesting, like I call it like a fundamental technology or interdisciplinary technology. So this is I start to pay attention to this. So I go dive into for this field. In order to quick learn the industry, it's better you talk with people, experienced people. So I interviewed with many physicians, it's like from US world, Western world, also from China. I try to look at how from the physician point of view, ophthalmologist point of view, how they look at this. And also I try to find some of the corporate leader, it's in this industry. I try to understand what's their angle to look at this industry. And beyond that, we do read many industry reports like the MarketScope on also some other, medias. So it means I try to bring more comprehensive angle, how they look at this industry. But the very, very, to trigger my, decision to focus in the ophthalmology is I found, wow, the eye is really, now need to see it's so critical for the people, even secondary to the life. And also I think it's once we interview and also read the report, we know that the vision issue could be accompanied with the people's lifelong, whatever you are, kids, teenager, adult, or even you become the aging, different stage, you have a different issues of the vision. So I saw, wow, it's a quite, lifelong, issue. And this is also now need to see, I think this is, if you have a good vision, that I think your life quality will be also improved. So because of this reason, we feel maybe it should our, direction. At the beginning, we can now see like we make a 100% right choice, but we said, okay, let's try. If we, I think maybe by that time in China, that's the first fund. You have a very specific industry to focus. We are not a healthcare fund. We are not a life science fund. We are even not a fund like invest in medical device. We are a fund invest in ophthalmology, optometry. So, and mainly, by that time, I think it's mainly in device. We do invest in pharmaceutical, but I think major part is still the medical device. So this is the reason. But if I look at back 6 years ago, when I made this decision, I think now I feel I make a right choice. It's a great industry. And even this industry, even you successful for one project, I mean, like for one company, one project, it can really solve some of the issue. You feel satisfied. So that's, I think we make a right choice. Yeah.
Obviously, I agree with you 100%. I mean, you're echoing the sentiment that, that we have. And obviously, you've worked with some of the other funds that are just like us. There are very few that focus specifically on ophthalmology, but we all, if you, as you get to know the people involved, you realize that we all share the same sentiment. Part of it is that there's a significant unmet need in ophthalmology, and as unbelievable as technology is in some areas, there are improvements that could do better, and we haven't tackled macular degeneration yet. And although we have some companies now that are some promising early data regarding dry macular degeneration, and we have some treatments for wet macular degeneration, we still don't have cures for anything, and there's a lot of work to be done. So, yes, we would agree, and it's great to have a partner like you. And I think one of the things that's important about having you in existence is that the importance of identifying technology, whether it's device or drug or some other healthcare technology focused on ophthalmology or AI, is that it's important to be able to have science that's applicable to the global population, and understanding what's needed in China and how the Chinese market will accept certain technology or pharmaceuticals, and the process by which those companies that have these products have to go through in order to gain approval is very unique in Asia. And our feeling, at least as a fund, is that we'd love to have you involved in our projects because you provide that expertise. It's particularly challenging in Asia, correct? I mean, you can't just easily translate technology in America or in Europe and just say, hey, we want to be in China now, let's go, right? It's a much more complex process.
Yeah, so I think it could be,
Keep going. No, I want you to focus on that for a moment. Sure.
So I agree with you, Rob. It's we invest in some overseas company like US, also Israel, and I think now we also has company in Singapore. But I agree with you. It's our own experience. We are in China here, and I think that to translate a solution to China to really with the right way to penetrate to this market, especially for the first, you need to overcome the regulatory hurdle. It's not very easy. It's challenge. So I think you need to be with really understanding about the healthcare environment here, especially I think now in China, the whole healthcare industry experienced the reform, it's like for the transformation that I think the reimbursement system in China now become more and more powerful. Not like before, more and more powerful. But except the reimbursement, the insurance system, I think today in China that pocket money, people's pocket money still takes a big proportion of the healthcare expenditure. So sometimes if the solution, you are not fully reimbursement, but it not means you don't have market here. So like some of the solution in the optometry, if you for myopia and even for presbyopia, so it's purely, pocket money, but they do still have a very good, market potential, and also some of the solution like dry eye. So it means like the payment system, and also I think is the regulatory environment is very different here. And also I always say like China is more like a tiered world. You have the bigger city like this Beijing, Shanghai is still already very, very developed city. You can look at is more connected with everything is more like the for I think for the modern city. But we also do have the rural area, in the tiered basic tiered city, that is people's is still not, it's even big gap like with the tier 1 city. So this is also I think constitute the comprehensive healthcare system in China. And I think in overall, I think this tiered healthcare system is under forming now, but not completely constructed yet. So you need to know all of this character, and then I think you can make a right choice how you can help your company or your solution to really penetrate to China market, to Chinese market. Yeah.
Right. And then there's the whole process of regulatory approvals and
Yes.
and intellectual property protection that's different there, and the whole process is somewhat unique. And I think that for United States investors, even European investors who are used to a very sort of formulaic and straightforward process of how things happen, although it may be very linear in China, it's very different. It's a very different linear pathway. And I think that smart investments will contemplate whether or not there's applicability in other economies besides the United States and Europe. And we certainly, have valued the insight that we've gotten from you regarding the process, or whether or not something is going to be easily either approved or utilized in the Asian market. So I think that's a very unique position for you to be in as at least the only ophthalmology focused VC that I know of. Certainly gives you a unique perspective. And clearly with your business background, that sort of, makes it a lot easier for you. What is Remansi going to do going forward? You guys have a nice portfolio. What are your plans for the future? Are you going to launch additional funds, or tell us what you have in store for everybody?
Okay, so far I think in the past 5 years or 6 years that we now manage the 2 funds. It's like our first fund is also almost close for the investment, but we still have some small follow-up for the portfolios if they really make the progress. For the second fund, actually I think we set up maybe 1.5 years ago, and this fund we are more focused to create the business. It means like it's a little different model than the first fund, because in the past almost more than 2 years is a pandemic. It's the traveling is limited, and we couldn't like before to meet with many companies to join a lot of the global ophthalmology meeting. So we need to find a model. for this unique, timing. So we set up a local fund, and this local fund, we can invest overseas, but this fund, we are more focused to create the business. It means it's more like the corporate venture, but it's belong to ourselves. And we use this fund to also connect with some special vehicle. For this special vehicle, we do the acquire and also to adopting the solution. This solution we feel could be fit for the Chinese market, but not only, also we hope that it's global, has a market potential. So it's so this fund, we call it a venture create business. That's what's this fund now, and this fund, I think we almost 1.5 years. I think we are more focused in I think several fields. One is optometry, that's a big issue in China, and also I think Asia. And also we do the business in the cataract, because I think for the global aging society, especially here, we do see the premium IOL goes, steadily, even in China. So we want to penetrate to this business. And also we use this fund to connect with, we have a very small incubation program. I call this a program because it's not a real fund, it's a program. We do have small money there, but we use this big fund to support as a back for this small program. It means for this small program, we go even much earlier, stage. It means we help a professor to forming the IP, and even we license the IP from the laboratory and university to form a very early stage company, even only has like mice data of laboratory level data. So for this small program, so far we have 2 projects. 2 assets, and once they start to grow, and we will support from this the second fund. So I think for Remonsi now is little comprehensive. What I mean is comprehensive is like we do have the first is purely like venture capital. We do the minority investment in the interesting technology. For the second fund, we do more about the venture create business, and also for some of the incubation. And I think once the world back to normal, we can freely to traveling, whatever, China and also US, I think we will continue to seeking and also explore more new, technology. We do have many companies in the pipeline, but as I said, we are not only satisfied with the Zoom meeting. We want to really, to meet with them and to visit the company. So that's, I think we leave to maybe second half of this year, and also for the future, 2 years. Yes.
Well, I think we're all hoping for that timeline. It'll be great to finally get together. Listen, I think we should probably try and wind it down now so I don't get yelled at again. But I just have to say that it's been a pleasure, obviously, speaking to you today and to learn, about you personally and your path and, the contributions that Remonsi is making to the development of important ophthalmic technology. It is fantastic to have you as your partner in the projects that we are both involved in, and I'm looking forward personally to continuing to try and, for us to help each other identify opportunities that improve the lives of patients, both in the United States and in Asia and across the planet. And I think that the attitude that you bring to this is the attitude that everybody who invests in life sciences should have. And I'm certainly thankful that you chose ophthalmology out of all the things that you might have chosen. And I hope the audience understands that that Remonsi is a special entity with the proper focus, and is going to be important in helping to better ophthalmic care of patients across the planet. So, Rochelle, thank you so much. Thank you for your time today. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in person whenever that's going to occur. And to the OIS podcast audience, thank you again for your time, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you again in the future.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you for listening, everyone. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the OIS Podcast. Be sure to listen in next week as we discuss the latest innovations in ophthalmology with experts in science, medicine, and industry. Subscribe to our iTunes channel so you don't miss a thing. Got a story of your own to tell? Apply to be a guest at OIS.net.